Hello and welcome to Cincy Hoops Talk, your one-stop shop for basketball coverage in Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. I am your co-host and founder of Cincy Hoops Talk, Rich Hoyt, and I'll be joined in today's show and in many more to come by my partner, Rick Broering. Some of you might know me. I have coached high school basketball in the Cincinnati area for about 10 seasons. This is my second year out of coaching. I was an assistant at Roger Bacon, head coach for 4 years at Summit Country Day. And now that I'm a couple years out, I'm basically one of those washed-up coaches you'll see on ESPN all the time who need to hang around and talk about basketball just to stay involved with it. So I've decided to found Cincy Hoops Talk with the goal of providing some more coverage of basketball around the Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky areas, and just chat some basketball. I'm really ecstatic about the project. I'm ecstatic about the website. I'm ecstatic about the podcast, and I kind of feel like I'm coaching my first game again with this podcast, and hopefully this episode turns out a little bit better than my first game did. I mentioned my co-host for Cincy Hoops Talk throughout the season will be Rick Broering. A lot of you around the area know Rick is the publisher for both MusketeerReport.com, where he covers all things Xavier basketball, and for NKYSportsblog.com, covering a variety of high school sports in Northern Kentucky. Rick, great to have you on board with Cincy Hoops Talk. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it may not be good, but it will be fun. And when you say a lot of people around the area may know me, you mean all four of them listening. So, I'm excited to do this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm ready to get going.
Great, excellent. I'm ready to get going, too. Hey, we're going to make this a deal where we're not just going to be talking to you. We want to hear from you as well. If you have questions, comments, want to report scores, have things you want to talk about basketball-wise, please contact us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is Cincy Hoops Talk. That's CINCY Hoops, HOOPS, Talk, TALK, all one word. You can also like us on Facebook at Cincy Hoops Talk, or you can email cincyhoopstalk@gmail.com. That's CINCY hoopstalk.com. This podcast is for you, our listeners, so please feel free to tweet, Facebook, email, whatever you want. Come talk to us when you see us at a game. Let's just talk some Cincy hoops. Rick, you ready to roll?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. All right, you're going to expect us to cover some local colleges on Cincy Hoops Talk, but I think you'll find that we're going to have a heavier emphasis on high school basketball around the area with Rick's coverage of Northern Kentucky high school basketball and some of my experiences with high school basketball in the Cincinnati area, as well as some of the relationships I have and going to visit some games this year. We'll also have some guests come along, particularly on our Saturday podcasts, with recaps of games throughout the season. Today we're going to give you a little bit of both sides. We're going to give you a little bit of the local college coverage, and we'll talk a little bit of high school as well, in particular recap the 2010-2011 season. We're going to hear from a couple high school state champion coaches. Cincinnati had a great year last year, great showing in the state tournament. 2 state championships came back to the Cincinnati area. LaSalle High School coach Dan Fleming and Taft High School coach Mark Mitchell. You will hear from them, as well as we'll recap National Signing Day, which just took place about a week and a half ago. And we'll see where some of the local talent will be playing next year. And we'll talk about the first week that was for the some of the local college teams as well. The boys' high school season in Ohio does not get underway until November 2nd. The boys in Kentucky, most of them will be tipping off the week of November 28th. So we'll talk more boys' high school basketball as well as some of the girls more in next week's podcast. Let's get started talking a little bit about last season's high school basketball. On the Kentucky side of the river, of course, Dixie Heights, a young team last year, 4 overtime win in a very exciting 9th regional final game. They beat Newport Central Catholic. As I said, a young team. They went to the Sweet 16 in Lexington last year. Rick, talk to us a little bit about last year, recap that, and obviously talk a little bit about that game. And you were there. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I have to be careful because I'm still a young guy, and obviously everyone wants to call you out when you're a young person that you don't have proper perspective to say things like it was the greatest game in Northern Kentucky. But by all accounts, everyone who's older than me agrees that it's at least one of the best games ever played in Northern Kentucky history and 9th region tournament history. I mean, you're talking about two teams with two, Brandon Hatton was probably the best player in the region, is the best player in the region now for sure. And Jake Geisler, the big man for Newcastle, now at Jacksonville University, was just two heavyweights sort of going at it, trading punches. I mean, Jake's 6'7", he's out there burying threes to keep his team in it. Brandon Hatton, just a freshman, had just made it to the 1,000-point club earlier in the season, a little bit before that tournament, and was just showing it was sort of his breakout party that, hey, this is Northern Kentucky is mine now, I own it. And he was just making big shot after big shot with the game on the line. I mean, neither team wanted to lose, and it was a situation where it wasn't bad basketball that was causing the overtimes. It was guys just making tremendous play after tremendous play to keep it going and keep their teams in it. And so it was so much fun to watch. And the best thing about it was those were the two best teams in Northern Kentucky last year. Mm-hmm. It was the sort of the game that leading up to the season, not everyone knew who was going to be the top couple teams. As the season went on, they kind of separated themselves, and it looked like, okay, it's either Newcastle or Dixie. We're not real sure which. Right. They get to the tournament. They play it out, and, again, we still weren't real sure. Even after that game, who was the best team. Dixie prevailed, struggled immediately against a very experienced and very athletic Lexcath team, and sort of the bright lights of Rupp Arena and everything, just looking around and saying, oh, wow, and having to go against a team like Lexcath who's got rich tradition, guys who have played there 3 years in a row. They struggled, but I think this year they're ready to get back, and they'll be much more equipped to handle that type of situation.
Yeah, certainly with the experience they had of getting to Rupp and playing there, they'll certainly have an advantage, and they'll have their feet wet, probably be hungry for more. We'll talk a little bit more in next week's podcast about Dixie. I know you went to see them play or see them practice this past week. But certainly a 4 overtime game in the 9th region last year with the trip to the Sweet 16 on the line. You can't be too far off in saying that's one of the best games that's ever been played in the 9th region.
Right. And we're not talking about that Cincinnati stuff where you have all these different state championships. We get one in Kentucky. Right. It's a true state tournament. So, I mean, it's a huge deal to get to play at Rupp Arena for these Kentucky kids, especially the ones that grow up dreaming of playing at Rupp Arena, playing for UK Wildcats, and are big-time Big Blue fans. So
absolutely.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, great tradition they have in Kentucky State Tournament, that Sweet 16. Moving on to the Ohio side of the river in the greater Cincinnati area. As I mentioned, just a tremendous 2010-2011 showing for the greater Cincinnati area. Really, Division I and Division III in particular had strong showings. Division IV was down a little bit. Both Lockland and Seven Hills advanced to the district finals, but neither one of them were able to get past there. Roger Bacon advanced to the regional final in Division II before falling in a very close game to Thurgood Marshall. But Division I and Division III was certainly where the Cincinnati showed well. Obviously, Division III, Taft High School came out of there with their first state championship. Summit Country Day advanced to the regional finals and really played Taft in as close of a game as Taft had all year, except for the one loss they probably had against Hamilton Southeastern out of Indiana. So Summit had a great showing in the tournament as well. And then Clark Montessori went on a nice run. They fell to Taft in the regional semifinals. So 3 schools from Cincinnati there, strong showing in Division III. And then also Division I, they had 5 district champions come out of Division I last year. LaSalle, of course, went on their magical run to win the state title. Their big rival, Moeller, lost to LaSalle in the regional final. And then Withrow, Winton Woods, and Lakota East all advanced to the regional semifinals as well. I had a chance to sit down and talk to the two state champion coaches from Ohio last year, Division I, Division III. Mark Mitchell, first from Taft High School. We sat down to talk about a few things, recap what the state championship meant to Taft High School, as well as looking forward to this year. He's certainly got a lot returning for Taft. And we also talked about his daughters and his busy family schedule. He's got a couple daughters, twins that are sophomores, twins that play for Princeton High School, and they are going to be one of the top girls teams in the country. So here's Mark Mitchell. Rich Hoyt here from Cincy Hoops Talk, here with Mark Mitchell, head basketball coach at Taft High School, the defending Division III state champions. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it, Coach?
That sounds great.
So coming off your state championship, what's this offseason been like for you?
It's been pretty hectic, just in terms of setting schedule, because we have one of the as big a national schedule that you can have being in the state of Ohio, with the one out-of-state game, and then some other, big time events at the Flying to the Hoop, and dealing with that. And just found out the other day that we're going to be a Nike sponsor team. Nike's going to sponsor our program, which is a good thing, because I think Nike only sponsors certain teams as long as you're winning and doing certain things. So I think that's a feather in our cap. So that's kind of been hectic, and dealing with the recruiting process, because we got 9 seniors this year. So, just really dealing with that whole recruiting process, making sure, guys are in the clearinghouse, making sure guys are taking ACTs and doing the things that they need to do academically. So it's been pretty busy,
Mm-hmm.
Put it like this. October has snuck up on me pretty quick.
Yeah. You're 189 and 35 over your 8 years here.
Yeah.
What is it that you've done to create a winning culture here at Taft High School?
I think early on when I first got here, I had these visions of what I wanted to do, and having coached in Winton Woods and been very successful there with Coach Lump and some of the other coaches I've worked with. I thought this is what I wanted to do, and this style of play, that style of play. And I figured out one thing, and you had to go back to being an educator. You got to figure out what works well for kids versus what you want to teach. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing that's kind of really put us in a really good situation, that's really allowed us to be advantageous in the fact that we have done things that works well for our kids. Mm-hmm. And doing that, you got to get to know your kids.
Sure.
And that's why, we've done the things that we've done, and some people kind of frown on it. Like, when we bring I bring the kids out to my house, and like if it's a Friday night game, and we play Saturday, they stay at my house, and we kind of eat and we laugh and we joke, but I know everybody's going to get to the game on time. Everybody's going to be safe, and it kind of has built a great camaraderie between our kids and my family, and as yourself as a coach, it's hard to be away from your family all the time. So we've been able to infuse that, and that's allowed us to have some success. But the biggest thing is really just identifying what works well for our kids versus what I think should work well.
Right.
And then it's up to me as a coach to learn as much as I can to introduce things to them that kind of keep them fresh, keep them energetic, and really just kind of see how we go with it from there.
Right. Great. You lost last year, or I'm sorry, in 2010 in the regional finals. You lost, and you had a series of seasons where you would advance to the district, you advance to the regionals.
Right.
You were able to make it to Columbus last year for the first time, and you were able to get over that hump.
Right.
What do you think were the keys to finally accomplishing that?
Me growing up as a coach, I think, and last year was funny because a lot of people said, man, you're a lot calmer. Now I was a lot smarter, because in years past, I would, we were still conditioned like crazy. I would run them in the ground, and I figured out, hey, you don't have to do that. I mean, you're already practicing as hard as you need to practice it, and kids are giving you everything. So, I figured out how to back off some. I figured out how to not make everything, so personal to the point where, I'm a football guy, coaching at coaching basketball, and then I'm coaching in an inner city school who hadn't had a winning season, hadn't done some of the things. So you want to try to kind of prove everybody that, man, we can win here. We got good kids here. So you end up missing the boat. So as I got older, I just got smarter, and I think those things allowed us to get over that hump. And then we figured out how to play the game of basketball the right way. And we were struggling there a little bit in terms of, we come down to certain situations of the game and you would turn it over. Well, that's
right.
A lot of it, was confidence with the ball, or maybe not cutting as hard or not screening as hard. But we figured out how to teach that better. And by figuring that out, the kids understood it. Once I figured it out and the kids understood it, then here we got. And then we had great experiences. And then our some of the pitfalls that we had in the years past, our kids learned from. So it's like that regional final. It's funny you mentioned that. My twin boys on that team. It's funny. It's funny because with them being in that situation, how do you win? And you feel bad because they didn't win it.
Right.
But the next year they
right.
win it.
Right.
So you feel bad for that. But what it is what it is. But they, in that experience, have helped us get to this experience
Sure.
that we have now.
Sure. Coach Mitchell, certainly appreciate your time. Appreciate you being here on Cincy Hoops Talk.
Yeah.
Best of luck in the 2011-2012 season.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you for coming in and having me.
All right, we got to hear from Coach Mark Mitchell there from Taft. Rich, some interesting things he said in that piece, obviously. Just tell us a little bit about your thoughts on what he had to say.
Well, I was extremely impressed. I was just sitting down and talking to Mitch. He is extremely invested in Taft High School, and he's put a lot of time and a lot of energy into building that program. Some of the Cincinnati public schools, they have some great history when it comes to their basketball programs. Before Mark Mitchell got there, Taft was not one of those that had a lot of history, and he's done a lot of great things there. I was really impressed just going into the school administration. They've done a lot of great things at that school over the past 9 years, and really, taking that program, making it a state champion caliber program. A lot could be said about how good of a coach Mark Mitchell is. Certainly, he's had great players a lot of them are still there that have made that a successful program. But he really is a guy that's learned a lot as a coach over his time that he's been there, and he really has the best interest of those kids. Really cares about them, and obviously they're going to be very good again this year.
Do you get the sense with a guy like Mark Mitchell who had his sons play there, things like that, do you get the sense that with the family being so involved in it, that it just sort of takes that dedication and I guess what you were saying, like where he brought the program from, do you think it takes it to a new level when you have your whole family sort of contributing to it?
Well, yeah, and I think, being a coach, for the little bit of time that I have, and I didn't coach as long as Mark, but you need to have your family invested with you and on your side if you're going to be successful. And I think Mark has had that, and certainly with his sons that played there, Cameron and Kevin, I got the sense he would have liked to have had them be on that state championship team last year. But, I think they're proud of where the program has come. And, I think they're looking forward to this year as well.
I remember interviewing Cameron and Adolphus Washington when they were youngsters on the football team. And just, you could tell there was a lot of pride in the program and being, just standing for what you believe in and building the program back up, which is something I think they lacked at Taft at times before the new regime got there.
Yeah, and when you talk about pride, you don't have to look any farther than the new building that the school has and also the new gym that they have. I walked into the gym, and it's not a huge place, but I don't think you need a huge place at the high school level. But it's nice. There was some money that was put into it. And then they work really hard, in the program as well, trying to raise money for the program and doing a lot of things to help get it going. So, they do have a lot of pride in what they've done, and I think it's shown in what they've accomplished last year.
No question. You definitely need that.
All right, let's move on. I also had a chance to sit down and talk to Division I head coach, state champion head coach Dan Fleming. Of course, Coach Fleming had an interesting month of March last year after his sectional championship victory against Aiken. Started to feel bad, was having some chest pains. Ended up eventually being taken to the hospital. Suffered a heart attack, and he was in the hospital for a few days. Obviously, everything turned out okay with Flem, but the team was able to go on a magical run, win the state championship, and have a storybook ending. Flem was fortunately able to be on the bench, although under doctor's orders he had to be sitting and not shouting. But as he said, he did one out of the two. I think Coach Fleming shouted a few things during the game, a few instructions. But Pat Godey, his longtime assistant coach, took over, did a tremendous job in Flem's absence, and I was able to sit down with Coach Fleming. He's back at it now for another year, his 22nd year at LaSalle, and he's coaching just like nothing has ever happened. So here's Coach Fleming. Rich Hoyt, Cincy Hoops Talk here with Dan Fleming, head coach of the LaSalle Lancers, the Ohio Division I basketball state champions from 2011. Coach, you kind of had your own March Madness, if you will, with your health issues and so forth. How you doing now at this point?
Yeah, everything's good. I just set up my appointment, my 6-month checkup. Actually, I had a 3-month checkup, and I have another checkup coming up November 17th. So I'll go out there and see Dr. Martin and hope everything's okay. I feel good. I'm doing pretty much what I'm supposed to. I'm not the perfect patient or anything. Although I have given up fried foods and I've given up salt and caffeine drinks and things like that. But, we've had open gym and been pretty active with that. And, I think I'm good to go. Hopefully I'll get good news on the 17th. But they did clear me back June 3rd and said, heart is strong, no damage. And I think everything's good.
Great. Good to hear. The grind of coaching, you've done this for a while now. This is your 22nd year as a head coach. You've done it a lot longer than I ever have. At any point, did you think about stepping away after the season ended during the off season?
No, I did make the statement though. If I go out now, because if the doctors would not let me come back, it wouldn't be a bad team to go out with that. We're in the middle of the tournament, and this was a special group we had. We had a bunch of seniors and guys that just really cared about each other. And you're never sure you're going to win the state or not, but we've been knocking on the door and just needed a break a little bit. And we got a break when Matt Woosie tipped that shot in the semifinals. That was a huge break for us. And this group just really played well. They worked hard every single day. They really deserved everything they got. So I was really hopeful. I have another son who's in 7th grade. I want to make sure I try and hope to stay through him. And I've had so much fun without Ryan, my son, being on the team this year, that I think I'm going to stay much longer than 6 more years. So my plan is long term. My plan is at least till I'm 60 or so. I'm 48. So I think I have a few years left in me. And, hopefully the health stays good. I think it was just one of those things. I don't know why it happened. Doctor doesn't know why it happened. But it happened, and I got to take care of it. And I take medicine twice a day. And hopefully everything will be okay.
Well, long-term plans, that's great for high school basketball in Cincinnati.
I hope so. We push our guys hard, and we expect a lot, and it's not for everybody. There's kids in the building who don't always want to do it because it is too demanding, but the ones that do it, I think they get some benefit, much more than just basketball out of it.
Right. Now, you suffered your heart attack after the sectional championship game against Aiken, and your longtime assistant, Pat Godey, took over. And really, this isn't anything against you, but the team really didn't miss a beat during the tournament run or anything. And I think that's a testament to what you have done to develop your program here at LaSalle. Speak to that and what you've done to develop that culture.
Yeah, I didn't really think of it in those kind of terms, but then a high school coach in Cincinnati sent me a note congratulating us, and he said something to the effect that you just said of true leadership is seen when the leader is not there. And he said, your team looked exactly the same with or without you. And once again, he's not knocking me, but he's just saying that, you have taught your players, you have taught your coaches. We just had a staff meeting in here when you came in, and we're all in this thing together. This is a total group effort. It's not me, it's not Pat, it's all our coaches,
right.
It's all our players, and it's all about us, and it's all about we. And I'm not knocking myself or Pat or anybody else, but quite frankly, my fourth grade daughter could have coached the team when I got sick. They were so ready to go. They knew what they had to do. They were not going to let anybody step in the way. The way I think we've gotten to that part, it has taken much longer than it has in some programs. Other programs are good every single year, and I think it's taken us longer. I'm not exactly sure why, but I know recently, especially the last 3 or 4 years, it has really been good around here. Obviously, we've had good players, right. But like you said, the culture, people know that LaSalle basketball kids are workers. Mm-hmm. They are tough guys. They are unselfish guys. They are all about team. They're all about winning. And people really respect that. I think people know that you get a LaSalle basketball player in your college or down the road in your work or whatever, that he will give you effort. He's not afraid to put forth effort and be part of the group. And I think that's what we try to do here. We like to win games, don't get me wrong, but we want to develop these young men to be
right.
good young people and everything.
Right. You won 2 state championships now. Your first one came when you were a sprightly young guy back in 1996.
Yep.
How was this state championship different than that one?
That one, when you're young, you just don't know the difference. In my 6th year, we're getting rolling in a tournament, and Dave Escherkamp and Craig Connolly are carrying us, and the other guys are all filling roles, and we get a win here and a win there. Next thing you know, we're in the regionals, and boom, we win those 2 games, and we go to Columbus, and 33 years old, you're like, well, there's nothing to this, And then there's a 15-year drought in there. We've had some good teams in between there, and you got to be good, but you have to have some luck. I mentioned it earlier. The ball's got to bounce your way once in a while. You got to get a guy to miss this free throw, or you got to make this big shot, and we just. 04 might have been, up until this year, 04 might have been the best team I ever had. Mm-hmm. But then the last game of the year, Justin Orr blows his knee out, and he can't play in a tournament. So we get to the regional semis, and we get beat that year. So it was really different because this year we were expected to do it. We were really expected to do it. We really thought we could do it. I remember we have a preseason meeting every year with all the parents and everybody, and we're sitting on the stage, and the AD's talking to the parents and kind of giving the lowdown of how the season goes for all winter sports and everything. Uh-huh. And Coach Munchin looks at me and says, we can't mess this up, can we? I said, I sure hope not, because everybody's thinking, we're going to win it. And, like I said, this group just really did deserve it, and they did really work hard to get there. So the guys at 96 really got going and played well in the tournament. They had a lot of close losses during that year. This team just had blowout wins all the time.
Right.
I mean, we rarely had a close game. It was usually 20 points at halftime.
Right.
And we just kept pounding people. You just couldn't score against us. And so it was really 2 different teams. It was really enjoyable. The heart attack obviously added a thrill to it this year. Well, it wasn't thrilling to me, but to everybody else, it was kind of a story and everything. But anytime you win the state, it's really a neat thing. Yeah. And it's such a... as a coach, you hope, we hope we do it again. I don't think we will, but we hope we do it again the 3rd time, whatever. But for those guys, that's their one chance.
Yeah.
That's it for them.
Yeah.
And they did it, and it just feels so good. And it's as a lasting memory, it's a really neat thing.
Right.
So.
Coach, I appreciate your time. Best of luck this season. That's Dan Fleming, head basketball coach, LaSalle High School.
All right, we just got to hear from Coach Dan Fleming there of the LaSalle Lancers. Rich, when you talk about what Coach Fleming did, I'll just never forget being at the Cintoss there, sitting courtside covering those games and looking up and seeing him just losing his mind up at the top watching from the stands. And you could just tell, a guy who's, if you know him, you know how passionate and fiery he is, to have to sit out while his team's playing again for a chance to get to the state title. It was just something hilarious to watch in some ways.
Well, I do know Coach Fleming, and you're right. You're passionate and fiery. Like, he can't be around the game of basketball without being passionate
right.
and fiery. And he's got the foot stomp down, and he's got the barking out things, and the style of play in which LaSalle gives you. The baseline to baseline play. He's talked about how he has to have that fire, that enthusiasm, if his teams are going to be successful. and I'll give him credit because his guys play as hard as any team you will play. Last year's team was obviously very talented. You had to be talented to win a state championship. But the teams that I've seen him coach where he hasn't had as much talent, those teams have played just as hard. And he gets the most out of every one of the teams that he has. Obviously, some are better with the talent than others. But, the thing that I also think is interesting about Flem is that a lot of people might criticize his style of play. He's pressing full court all the time. When he has the players, he's subbing 5 out and 5 in, and every chance he gets criticism for that. But the thing is, he has a philosophy, and in order to be a successful coach, you have to have a philosophy. Whether it's playing baseline to baseline, whether it's sitting back in a half court zone for 32 minutes, whatever it might be, he's had his way of doing things, and obviously they've been the right way for him, the right way for LaSalle. He's won 2 state championships now, and I have the utmost respect for Flem.
No question. I think, going back to your point, I think as a coach you have to know what works for you. Mm-hmm. And some coaches it's, hey, we change based on our personnel every year. Some coaches it's, this is the style I play, the style I know, and the style I'm good at teaching and implementing and getting the best out of my kids every year. And it's just some guys, like you said, are able to get them to play hard for 40 minutes up and down the court, baseline to baseline, every single year regardless of talent. He's one of those guys. I don't think every coach can do that. It takes a certain type of coach. He happens to be one of those guys, and he's obviously been very successful with it.
Yeah, you're right. He has been very successful with it, and you're exactly right about the point that it just depends on the coach. Yep. I mean, some are going to play their style of play and do what they do and do it as best as they can, and then there are some coaches that like to be more adaptable, and there's no right way, wrong way. It's just a matter of how well you do your job, when you're doing it.
I think a lot of it goes back to personality too, and that's sort of just all the makeup of a coach. But we talked about him being fiery and passionate. He's able to bring that out of his kids. His kids play that way all the time. Some other coaches that are a little more laid back, maybe they're kind of, hey, go with the flow. I'm good at teaching any type of style, but I'm not able to get my kids to play the same way no matter what type of talent I have.
Right, and he said it in the interview. He said, my guys think it's cool to play hard.
Right.
And, that struck me because that is such a difficult thing to do these days, is to get kids to think that it's cool to play hard. It's cool to dive on the floor for loose balls. It's cool to take charges. It's cool to hit the heck out of somebody on a box out to get a rebound. And I give them a lot of credit because it's a hard thing to do.
No question.
All right, Rick. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk with a special guest we have in today's first podcast. It's going to be Corey Albertson from TripleDoubleProspects.com. You're listening to Cincy Hoops Talk on CincyHoopsTalk.com. Rich Hoyt back with Cincy Hoops Talk. We are going to talk some recruiting. Okay, we are joined by a special guest, and he's extra special because he was on my first team that I had as a head coach at Summit Country Day, doing a lot of really good things now with TripleDoubleProspects.com. We're joined by Corey Albertson. Corey, signing week began just a little over a week ago, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, November 9th. Corey, you've joined forces with my co-host, Rick Broering, to really put together an outstanding online recruiting resource. As I mentioned, prospects.com. You guys are covering high school prospects in the Ohio and Kentucky areas both. Rick does a lot of the work in Kentucky. Corey, tell us why you started the site to begin with.
Well, I'm happy to tell you why I started this site, but first I just want to thank Coach Hoyt for having me on Cincy Hoops Talk, and you guys are going to know him as Rich, but he's always going to be Coach to me, one of my closest mentors, and just want to say how excited I am to be here. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. And the reason I started Triple Double Prospects was I was working for a site that I started called Cincy Prep Hoops Report, and as the AAU season progressed after the high school season, I found myself branching out and covering more and more of Ohio. And then through some connections I made, I was fortunate enough to meet Rick Roaring, who knows all the players in Kentucky, and we were able to come together and start something that we think is going to be really special. And the reason we started Triple Double Prospects is we wanted to make a resource for players, college coaches, and fans to be able to gauge who the top talents are in all of Ohio and Kentucky. And one of the very first things that we thought was important to us was for the website to have a professional feel. You know, not to be a blog, but to be an in-depth website. And we wanted to have a name brand just as much someday, hopefully, as a Rivals.com, a Scout.com, or an ESPN. And that's why we went with player profiles. And if you go on our website, which is tripledoubleprospects.com, you'll see that just about every player listed in our rankings has a profile picture, the information about the player, their height, their school, their class, etc., and then a brief evaluation from either Rick or myself or a select few people who are helping us out in some of the cities that we don't live as close to, where we get to see the guys, but not every day. Want to thank all those guys, by the way, from the various cities. And we think it's a nice opportunity for high school players to get exposure to the college coaches. The college coaches can go on there and see a player, and they can read the evaluations of two different point guards and decide, I want more of a pass-first point guard, or I want more of a scoring point guard. And that's what you can't see in just the traditional rankings, but with the evaluations and the video and even the pictures to an extent, you can see what you're really going to be getting out of a player. And there's always going to be controversy when you rank players, especially statewide. There's always going to be accusations of bias, but we feel it's really beneficial to fans and to players, and then probably most importantly to college coaches, just to get all that information out there organized and try and bring Ohio basketball and Kentucky basketball to the forefront, because we truly believe in the kids that are coming out of these states and these programs.
And I think one of the most, for me at least, teaming up with Corey was something I really wanted to do because he's well respected.
Right.
College coaches respect guys who grind, guys who work hard. If you check his phone bill from signing day, I guarantee you it's absurd how many people were hitting him up. And that's because coaches respect his work. They know he's out here seeing all the kids, and that's something I try to do myself. So I met someone that, hey, you're sort of in the same mold. You're willing to go out here and see as many kids as possible and waste your weekends and not go out on a Friday night because you're sitting here watching high school games. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is he has the type of respect that I wanted to have, and I feel like bringing us together has really added to the credibility, and I think it's going to do well.
I got to disagree a little bit there with Rick, only because for myself and for Coach Hoyt and for Rick, I don't think it's ever a waste. We all love basketball.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
And, it's a lot of hours and it's a lot of commitment. You do have to give up other things, but I don't think it's ever a waste. And, to me, it's a thing where after I see an event, AAU game, high school game, even a practice, I can't wait to get home and, write about something. And, I've always, through my, coaching failures at the AAU level, I've really come to love, all the kids that are working at achieving a goal. And, we're just trying to help anybody out there get to that next level that's willing to put the work in, that has the abilities. Hopefully they can get seen.
Yeah. You mentioned, obviously, the site, it's helpful for fans around Ohio and around Kentucky. They get to hear and read about and even see some of the better players around the area. What college coaches are you targeting? Are you targeting your high D1s, your mid majors, your low D1s, Division 2s, 3s, or is it a mix?
Well, that's something. Triple Double Prospects is very new, And that's something where we're a little bit still trying to find our identity. But something that Rick and myself and then people who I've really trusted, I want to name one person, Kurt Stubbs, who ran a great site called Ohio High School Hoops before retiring from it. And we talked about where Ohio's going to have a couple high major kids, as in, one of the big six power conference kids every year. But there are so many Ohio kids that can play at the Division I levels and Kentucky kids that can play at the Division I level. And it's really for all schools. And I think we can do something better with, we can target more of the low major Division Is, and we really need to do a better job of targeting all Division IIs. And that's something that Rick and myself have been working on with our scouting service we provide to coaches. But with the website, we just want to keep those guys getting their name out there, because if you look at an example I'll use is Jared Sullinger. When Jared Sullinger was coming through Columbus Northland, he was on every national website, where if we were around back then, I think we would have put a lot of time into maybe helping out a kid like Aaron Kraft, who, although he ended up at Ohio State, wasn't as big of a name. And it's those kids I think can really benefit from the exposure of triple-double prospects. And college coaches see that. They really like the website. They appreciate the evaluations and how much we're able to get out there and see those kids, and especially see those kids play against each other.
Well, I've been impressed with how many guys you're actually talking about on the website, how many videos you're putting up. You're helping out a lot of kids around the city of Cincinnati, around the state of Ohio, and throughout Kentucky as well, just getting their names out there. And the more college coaches I know that are able to get on there, the better chance that a lot of these kids have of advancing and playing at the next level. Let's talk a little bit about some of the big signings that took place on November 9th. Couple Division I signees took place on the 9th. Willie Moore from Aiken, who I know, Corey, you're close with and have spent some time with coaching, and then also Tony Sabato from Moeller. Talk about those and some of the other signings from this year's senior class.
Well, Cincinnati's class, when you look at it in the broad scope of all of Ohio, is very much similar. And Ohio this year, we already have, as of today, 33 kids who have either signed or are committed and will sign with Division I colleges. And it's not necessarily a top-heavy class, but it's very deep. And that's what we found with Cincinnati is, I think we might set a record. I don't know what that record is. We might set a record with Division II kids come out of Cincinnati this year. And we have some Division Is right now, and the most talented of them by far and away is Willie Moore from Aiken, who is the number one shooting guard in the state of Ohio on tripledoubleprospects.com, and I think that's pretty unanimous with scouts across the board. And I've known Willie since he was finishing up 7th grade, and he's always just been an unbelievable talent. He's going to be attending Duquesne next year, and I was fortunate enough to go over to the signing day ceremony at Aiken. It was very, very emotional hearing Coach Leon Ellison, who Willie lives with, talk, and hearing the athletic director and the principal talk about what it means for someone from Aiken, where they've had a lot of talent come through, who unfortunately hasn't been able to meet the academic requirements to go D1, but Willie did, and we're really, really proud of him for him to be going to Duquesne. And Duquesne's a perfect fit for Willie for a couple reasons. It's an Atlantic 10, it's a very good conference, it's not too far from home, and he's going to play right away. And the style of play that Coach Ron Everhart runs is great for Willie. Duquesne, over the last 2 years, has led the nation in assists and steals. Mm-hmm. And if you talk to anybody from Duquesne, that's going to be the first thing they tell you.
Yeah,
it might be, in the pamphlets they send out to every student.
They got a really good backcourt right now.
Really good backcourt right now with T.J. McConnell as the starting point guard. He's a Pittsburgh native. And they've also led the nation, or I believe they might have been second in the nation in field goals attempted. I watched them play Arizona the other night, and they were getting 3-point field goal attempts up with 30 seconds on the shot clock. So, they play fast, and that's Willie Moore's game.
Yeah, Willie's going to be in good hands, not just with Coach Everhart, but his athletic director as well, Greg Amodio, who is actually one of the people responsible for bringing me to Cincinnati. Amod's still a good friend, and happy that Willie's going to be joining Greg at Duquesne.
And let's not forget Rodney Crawford, the assistant coach that recruited Willie, is actually from the same street as Willie Moore, former Withrow Tiger and Cincinnati Bearcat Rodney Crawford.
See, it all comes back to Cincinnati basketball.
It does, and I think that was a big connection to drawing Willie towards the school. And the connections obviously play such a big part in recruiting, and that's where I think the next one that we're going to talk about comes in Tony Sabato. Mm-hmm. And Tony Sabato's a kid who you didn't see on the AAU, on the national circuit as much, or even on the local circuit as much. But because he plays at Moeller under Coach Carl Kramer, if Coach Kramer calls a school and says this kid's good enough, most of those schools are going to go ahead and offer that kid a scholarship. And Tony Sabato is just a workhorse down low. He played on a Moeller state runner-up team 2 years ago as a sophomore, along with Griffin McKenzie, is one of the only big guys. And then last year on a regional final team, he was the only big guy. And the thing about Tony, he's 6'7", maybe 6'8", very strong, runs the floor as hard as he can. He really plays with toughness on that block. He defends, he rebounds. And what he doesn't get credit for, he's a very skilled offensive player. He can step out and shoot a 15-footer. He can score on the low block with a hook shot, a drop step. He's very versatile. He's got the whole package. And he's going to be going to Elon next year out of the Southern Conference. I think that's going to be a really good fit for him because of the style of play in that conference is very strategic. It's very it's a slower pace compared to some of the bigger conferences. And I think with Elon grinding it out, I think Tony can make an impact there, especially in practice right away. And down the line, I think he can be a very good player in the Southern Conference.
Corey, there's some other possible Division I caliber players that are still out there unsigned. A couple notable ones, Josh Lemons from LaSalle. Josh had committed earlier in the fall to play down at Southeastern Louisiana, and then decommitted. Also, Giovanni McKnight from Middletown. What are you hearing about those two?
Well, I had a chance to talk to both those kids in the last couple days, and Josh Lemons was just a situation where he had called me the day he decommitted and just told me a situation where he was uncomfortable. And he's very, very close to both his parents. He wants his parents to be able to see him play, and he felt that Southeastern Louisiana was just too far away. And he decided that he's going to reopen his recruitment. He's going to wait until the spring. And with 4 seniors graduating off last year's state championship team, Josh is now, even though he was the leading scorer last year, he's even more so the man this year. And I think college coaches that go see him play are going to see his complete game. And Josh right now is hearing from Coastal Carolina, Toledo, Northeastern, and Morehead State. But that list, I think, is going to continue to grow. And several coaches I've talked to in the MAC and the Horizon League, they both like Josh. And, I mean, they both conferences like Josh, all the schools. And they're just kind of waiting to see where the pieces fall. And I think you'll see his recruitment really pick up. One of the knocks on Josh I get is he a true point guard? And I believe the answer to that question is yes. He's an excellent athlete. He's won everywhere he's gone. 2-time AAU national champion, high school state championship. And he's just a pure winner, great work ethic, can shoot the ball, very athletic, tenacious on-ball defender. I really like Josh's game. And then when you look at Giovanni McKnight, if Willie Moore is talent number 1 in Cincinnati, Giovanni McKnight is 1A. And the reason Giovanni's exposure is down a little bit is that, unfortunately, he was hurt last July. Currently, last year, July was the only time the college coaches were able to come out and see AAU games, and G was hurt and played sparingly, if any, in most of the major tournaments. Disappointed a lot of college coaches. He's going to have a huge year. When you look at Giovanni McKnight and sophomore Vincent Edwards at Middletown, they're a dynamic duo, and they're going to put up a ton of points on the board. And there's going to be college coaches coming in and out of that building, which is a great building to watch a game at if you've never been. G right now is hearing from Western Illinois, Eastern Kentucky, and Miami, Ohio. And his advantage is that he's being recruited as both a point guard, a shooting guard, and probably his most natural role, which is both. He's a combo guard. It was a former quarterback, and when you watch him play, you can see that. And I actually had the opportunity to edit some of his high school games last year and make a highlight tape for G, and I just noticed his basketball IQ. And everyone knows, Giovanni's a great athlete. Everybody knows Giovanni's a flat-out scorer of the basketball. He's a tough competitor. But it's his basketball IQ and passing ability and ball handling ability that I think makes him a point guard that can score and place him to at the college level as opposed to just a shooting guard. And I think he can be a mid-major basketball player down the road.
All right, Corey, thanks. Moving on to the junior class, the class of 2013, absolutely loaded around Southwest Ohio. The big one, obviously, is Devin Williams from Withrow. He's getting a lot of attention from some high-level Division I schools, and he might be following in the footsteps of the long line of great Withrow big men. When you look at your LaSalle Thompsons and Tyrone Hills and Yancey Gates at UC. Talk about Williams, what kind of a player he is, and who's after him right now.
Well, when you say he might be following along that line, I disagree. I think he will be going along that line because of one thing, and that's Devin Williams has a tremendous work ethic. And whenever a college coach talks to me about Devin Williams, I tell him work ethic. And he's one of those kids that he'll finish practice at 6, take a shower, and he'll be ready to go back again at 7, get in the gym, work on his ball handling, work on his shooting. And Devin is 6'8". He's about 225, and he looks like a grown man with his strength. It's unbelievable strength, and he knows how to dominate a game. You see a lot of young big guys that'll try and float on the perimeter, and Devin has some of those abilities, but he just goes in the post, does the dirty work, is a high-level rebounder, and he just takes care of his business down there, and that's what's going to make him such a dominant player. Right now, his offer list is getting close to a who's who. Illinois, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Iowa, Marquette, UCLA, USC, Xavier, Purdue, Louisville, Arkansas, Dayton, and this list goes on of schools. It's basically be easier to name the schools that aren't recruiting Devin at this point. And, a lot of people, they love his motor, meaning they love how hard he plays and continuously he never stops, and he's a competitor that wants to dominate the game, that wants to be the best player on the floor. And, Devin's not shy in the fact that he wants to be the best player in Ohio in his class. He wants to make the McDonald's All-American game. And those goals are lofty, but I think they're reachable for him.
Yeah, somebody's big time when he's being recruited by big-time programs all across the country and not just in a more regional area. There's quite a few other Division I prospects in that 2013 class.
There's a lot of not only Division I prospects, but a couple other potential high major prospects. And it's a group of wings, and we got a lot of talent, and we're really going to see them hopefully separate themselves from each other and make my job a little easier with these rankings during their junior season. And we got Monty Boykins from Lakota West, Josh Davenport from Moeller, Austin Grimes from Aiken, Kevin Johnson from Summit, DJ Wingfield from Laughlin. And they all have varying interests in schools. And the first one's Monty Boykins. And to me, he's the one that made the most improvement from his sophomore to his junior season. Always been a shooter. His body's filled out. He's gotten stronger. And now he's really attacking the rim. And when he does that, the sky's the limit. He might be the first one to start to get those high major looks. He had Notre Dame come in and see him work out. He had Wisconsin come in and see him work out. Dayton has offered him. He took an unofficial visit to Penn State earlier this fall, and he's doing a really good job of going through the process and getting himself out there. And I'm really high on what Monty's doing right now. I think he's going to have a great season. Josh Davenport might be the best pure talent in the class, and you can even include Devin Williams in that when you say that Josh Davenport has the most talent. At 6'5", long, extremely athletic, and he can just roll out of bed and score 20 points. And he did it last year in the tournament when it was just unbelievable. And you look at a kid who's averaged only about 8 points, and his minutes went up, and his points, if his minutes doubled, his points quadrupled. He was that effective of a scorer. And he needs to improve his jump shot, and he needs to stay healthy. But Josh can be a really big-time player. Two of the big schools that really, really love Josh are Dayton and Butler. And right now, those are the two that are recruiting him the hardest. But he's also hearing from Wisconsin. He's hearing from Cincinnati. He's hearing from Iowa. He's hearing from Xavier. Next one's Austin Grimes. Austin, great work ethic, tough kid. Austin might not have a true position yet. His ball handling's improved, his shooting's improved, but what he does is as an undersized forward, I would say undersized small forward, he goes and gets rebounds. He'll dunk the ball in traffic. He makes all the toughness plays for you, and he looks like he's going to be a steal for whatever MAC coach ends up with him, and that's where he's being recruited right now. Toledo, Akron, Bowling Green have all offered. He's hearing from just about everybody in the MAC. Cleveland State's another one, really recruiting Austin. Mm-hmm. You've got Kevin Johnson. Kevin is an interesting one. Kevin at 6'2", has great size, especially when you look at his dad, who's about 5'5". KJ can attack the rim with anyone. He's just an unbelievably gifted athlete, but we're not sure, is he a pure point guard? And that's really the big debate. He has an unbelievable amount of talent. What we want to see Kevin do this year as a junior is make his teammates better. Mm-hmm. He clearly can score the basketball. He clearly can handle the basketball. He's a very good defender. Can he become a pure point guard and make his teammates better? Right now, his offer list includes Cornell, includes Seton Hall out of the Big East, St. Joe's out of the A-10. He's hearing from everybody. Illinois, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Iowa, they're all inquiring about him. And he's going to be one where I think we might not know until late where he'll end up. And the last one's DJ Wingfield. And that's the son of former Bearcat D'Antonio Wingfield. And DJ right now has only been offered by Ohio University and Toledo, but he is another extremely, extremely talented kid who can play the 1, 2, or 3 position. Great ball handler. I think the best passer, maybe even in the state with his vision's uncanny. With DJ, it's a question of can he sustain that terrific motor for the whole game. He clearly has the talent. Coach just want to see him be consistent and play with a high level of intensity, and that's what I'm going to be looking at with DJ over his junior season at Laughlin.
Great. Corey, moving on quickly to the 2014 class. It's kind of similar to 2013. It's a pretty good class, and it's led by another prospect that's being recruited by everybody. Middletown's gym has been extremely busy this fall, not only with coaches coming in to see Giovanni McKnight, but also sophomore Vincent Edwards as well.
Yeah, Vincent Edwards, we barely have time to tell you the amount of schools that are interested in him and the amount of things that he can do on a basketball court. He's 6'6", pushing 6'7", and in the high school level, Vince can guard the 1 through 5 spots. He can guard anyone on the floor, and offensively he can play anywhere. He shoots the three-pointer. He can handle the ball like a guard and pass it. He attacks the rim, and he's a tough kid that gets the rebounds. He's got a high basketball IQ. He comes from a basketball family. He's got a brother that played Division I. His father played Division I, and he's been very well coached. And Vince is going to be a kid that blows up this year. This early in the process, he might be the best sophomore in the state of Ohio, one of the best sophomores really in the country. And Purdue and Dayton have already extended offers to Vince, and he's received significant interest from Xavier, from Indiana, from Cincinnati, from Michigan. He's really hearing from everybody right now. Vince is the one to watch right now in the sophomore class in Greater Cincinnati.
Rick, you take care of things over on the Kentucky side of the river in terms of recruiting for triple-double prospects. Talk to us the signings that occurred, whether on signing day or signing week. What happened on the Kentucky side?
Well, the biggest, after Corey just gave us that rundown and tons of information right there, great stuff. He left me kind of speechless, but that's okay because Sydney Moss was actually the biggest signing over in Northern Kentucky for basketball on the girls' side of things. Going to Florida, Randy Moss's daughter. Right. If you haven't seen her play, she's a treat, even if you hate girls' basketball. She's a phenomenal athlete, really special talent. Something we've never really seen before. There's not really any big basketball signings that we had at the D1 level for Northern Kentucky right now. There is a kid or two out there in that 2012 class, though, that could still sign and really should be getting more looks. Parker Stansberry, I wrote about this on my blog yesterday, from Dixie, is a guy who's a no-question D2 kid. And we're talking D2 at the highest level, NKU Bellarmine-type kid, that honestly low majors should be looking at. He's 6'6", he's extremely versatile, shoots the ball well from the outside and off the bounce. I really... Other than the fact that Northern Kentucky just doesn't have a very good reputation and doesn't get much exposure because of the lack of competition, And that's the only reason I can see that he's not getting looks, because there's definitely a lot of low majors offering kids that aren't as good as Parker Stansberry. I'll say that much. And another kid that's just really hasn't gotten much traction in recruiting yet because he's a 3-sport star. And really, you never see this where he's not just a 3-sport athlete. He's the best player on his team in all 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball, and that's Newcath's Brady Highchew. He's the star quarterback in football. He's got football offers from some small schools. He's got some basketball schools that have come to look at him a little bit, haven't offered yet, and then he's got some baseball schools that have offered him to play football and baseball there. So it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do, but he's a D2 kid if basketball teams take the chance on him and convince him, because he loves the game of basketball. And he's also a guy that has got tremendous upside because he's such a good athlete, and he's doing all this without any off-season work. I mean, he's playing baseball, big-time baseball during the summer, and preparing for football all off-season. So he really never plays any AAU or really works on his game in the off-season, and he still goes out there and is one of the top players in Northern Kentucky.
Yeah. Underclassmen, there's a few of them out there, led by Brandon Hatton from Dixie Heights, part of that contingency of colonels that are going to be looking to go back to the Sweet 16 this year. Hatton probably the top prospect in Northern Kentucky.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about him, where he's at, who's looked at him, which schools, and then also what other guys are out there.
Well, Hatton's he's a stocky kid. He's kind of weird when you see him because he doesn't fit the prototypical image of what you expect.
Especially for a sophomore.
Yeah, he's very stocky, very strong, and it looks like he's grown another inch. He looks to be about 6'3" now, which helps him tremendously as a 2-guard. He's an elite-level shooter with limitless range. And he's hearing from Oklahoma State, Butler. He visited Xavier last year, so it's not tremendous interest right now because everyone just wants to see how his body's going to develop and what type of athlete he's going to become. They know he's a good enough shooter. They just want to see where he ends up athletically. So a lot of teams taking the wait-and-see approach as far as offers, but he's got some big-time schools interested. Another guy in the 2014 class over at Holy Cross, point guard Jalen Avery, is going to be pretty special. He's got a chance to be a low-major type kid. If not, D2s should be all over him because he plays with great pace and just a great feel for the game. Also at Dixie, another guy that might get some D1 looks in that sophomore class, one of the top sophomores in the state, is their true point guard, Jordan Fox, who transferred from Jackson County, another good shooter from the outside that really understands how to push the ball, how to play with the great pace, and get the ball up the floor via the pass instead of over-dribbling, things like that. Great vision, tremendous true point guard and lead guard that will be able to lead teams at the college level.
Great. Guys, thanks for the updates. We really look forward to hearing more on the recruiting scene as the season progresses. And if you want to log on to Rick and Corey's website, again, it's tripledoubleprospects.com. You can follow them all year long. And again, that is Rick Broering and Corey Albertson from Triple Double Prospects. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you coming on and talking about where we're at in the recruiting scene, and we'll chat some more about it.
Thanks, Coach. Looking forward to coming back.
All right. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will move on to the college scene, talk a little bit about the past week in the local college basketball action. This is Rich Hoyt from Cincy Hoops Talk.
Welcome back in, CincyHoopsTalk.com. Rick Brewing, Rich Hoyt rolling right along, wrapping up our first edition ever of the Cincy Hoops Talk. And it's been a lot of fun. But, Rich, right now we want to talk about something a little more serious. The Cincinnati community lost a great member of their basketball community in the past week. Talk about that.
Yeah, Rob Herzl, the father of a couple of the young men that I coached. I was fortunate to coach at Summit Country Day. Robbie, who graduated in 2010, and also Holden, who will be most likely be the Silver Knights starting center this year. Rob lost his battle to cancer last week, and I was fortunate to attend the celebration of his life this week. And Rob was just an unbelievable man. He touched a lot of people, including his two sons, and also Caroline, who is a sophomore varsity player for Summit Country Days girls team. I just wanted to, say how much he meant to me as a parent of the boys, and a parent of somebody in my program. Was so extremely supportive of me, and always had positive things to say to me and to the boys as they came through the program. Rob also was on a state championship runner-up team at Summit Country Day back in the early 80s. And, our community lost a really good person. And I just wanted to extend my condolences to the Herzl family. This whole thing with cancer, and he battled it for a year and a half. It's really an unfortunate deal. And I have already forged a partnership that you're going to be hearing a lot more about on Cincy Hoops Talk over the course of this season and hopefully into the future. But I formed a partnership with the American Cancer Society, and a partnership that I'm looking forward to helping them and doing what I can to help this just terrible, dreaded disease. And it's going to take a lot of people and a lot of effort and a lot of work to end this. But certainly, Rob's going to be on my mind as I help fight this thing. And just really fortunate to be involved with the American Cancer Society. And as I mentioned, you'll hear a lot more about this as we move on throughout the season. That's going to wrap it up today, and this first episode of Cincy Hoops Talk. I am ecstatic about the start of basketball season. Rick, I know you are as well. It's the only thing that gets me through the winter months. If it wasn't for basketball, I'd be a Bear, or I'd be living probably down in Florida. Next week's podcast, we're going to do a comprehensive preview of the boys' high school season, maybe a few predictions tossed in there as well. And remember that this is about you, our listeners. We want you involved with this. Tell us what you want to hear about. Report scores, ask us questions, and remember to tweet us at our Twitter handle at Cincy Hoops Talk. Like our Facebook page, Cincy Hoops Talk, or email cincyhoopstalk@gmail.com. And again, Cincy is CINCY Hoops Talk. Remember to check each night as well for scores on cincyhoopstalk.com. High school scores, local college scores updated each evening. Just click on the scoreboard link at the top for updated college and high school scores. Thanks to Corey Albertson for talking recruiting around the Cincinnati area tonight as well. Rick, thanks for your work. Look forward to doing it again.
Yep, I'm excited.
Great. Check out next week's podcast, which will be linked right here again on CincyHoopsTalk.com next Saturday morning, November 26th. Want everybody to have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the time with your family, and we look to spending it next weekend with you right here at Cincy Hoops Talk, CincyHoopsTalk.com. For Rick Brewing, I'm Rich Hoyt. Thanks very much.